Hey, what is going on, guys? XpertFusion here, and today we are going to be ranking the top 25 best Walking Dead episodes, in my opinion. So this is a thing I do kind of every year, where I do some sort of a ranking for the Walking Dead episodes. Last year, I actually ranked all episodes. So after Season 8, I ranked all 115 episodes from worst to best. Took a long damn time. I have that video still up on my channel. I was actually into 3 different parts. If you want to check it out, link will be in the description. You can also check out some different playlists that I do that with. But of course, we now have Season 9 that came out, of course, a few months ago. It finished a few months ago, and Season 10 is right around the corner. So I decided, why don't I rank the top 25 best episodes, including, the Season 9 episodes, as well as the fact that my opinions just have changed from last year. My list is very different than it was last time. Not only because Season 9 episodes came in, but also because my opinions on other episodes have changed around. Some opinions haven't changed that much. A lot of them have. So I'm definitely going to do some sort of an updated list every year after a new season. I don't want to rank all episodes again. That's going to take a long damn time, and it's just unnecessary because a lot of the episodes in between, there's not really much to say about them. It's just like, oh, they were okay, I do think I might do a ranking of my top 10 least favorite episodes up to this point. Right before the reveal of Season 10, or the premiere of Season 10, but for now, this is the top 25 best Walking Dead episodes, just Walking Dead, not including Fear the Walking Dead, from Seasons 1 to 9. Let's get into this list. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Let me know your list down below, and let's get into it. So before I get into the 25th spot, I do want to preface that what makes an episode good, in my opinion, is obviously might be different than others. I'm taking into account everything, so the acting, the directing, the writing, the dialogue, the character development, the action sequences, the cinematography, the choreography, the soundtrack, everything about the episode, just the entertainment value. Was it enjoyable to watch? That's all important. So let's get into the number 25 spot, which is Season 5, Episode 3, 4 Walls and a Roof. So this is the episode, of course, with the end of the Terminus group, when, of course, Bob was found to be bitten, and the Terminators were eating them. The Terminus people were eating them, and eating his leg, of course, and he started laughing at them and all that stuff. This episode was dark, literally and figuratively. Obviously, it was a very dark, it was at nighttime, there was a lot of dark sequences, but it was a very dark in terms of what was happening, because these people come to the church to finish the job, to kill these people because they know they're out there. Gareth wants to finish it. And then Rick and the gang outsmart them, come from behind, and get them on their knees, and then take them out. And that was one of the most brutal scenes we've ever seen. And it was so brutal because it was our main characters doing it. It wasn't a villain killing someone in a brutal way like Negan killing Glenn. No, this was our Rick Grimes, Michonne, Abraham. They were killing these people in such brutal ways. I mean, they deserved it because they were psychopaths and they were eating other people, but it was still so dark seeing them do what they were doing, and I really, really loved that. I love the tone of the episode. I love the atmospheric kind of darkness to it, sort of a thing. Really awesome for that way. IMDb gives it a score of 9.0 out of 10 stars. I'm going to go over the IMDb ratings for every single episode, which, to be honest, a lot of them I absolutely disagree with the ratings, but this episode in particular, I think that's a pretty good rating for it. Maybe not that high, maybe a little bit lower. I think every episode on this list deserves at least 8.5 stars and above, but obviously the way that the community feels about different episodes is obviously going to be different than how I feel. Therefore, a lot of these stars rankings are very different than mine. But I'm going to mention them anyways, just to kind of add some interest into the list a little bit. So, 25th spot, 4 Walls and a Roof. Such an awesome episode, which ends, of course, with Daryl and the gang coming back and being like, not having Beth, not having Carol with them. And that was a cool cliffhanger to go into the next episode, which I really did not like the next episode, but you get the idea. It was still a really well-rounded episode, and Bob's death was emotional and sad. Even though he wasn't a huge character, it was still a sad way to see him go. And he was a fun character. I liked him. So, this comes in at 25th spot. And coming into 24th spot, I've got Season 4, Episode 5, which was titled Interment. So, this episode was really cool back then, still is to this day. Really good Herschel episode. I'm a big fan of the character of Herschel, and this was one of the best Herschel episodes. he had a lot to do, and of course his demise came a few episodes later, so that made this episode even more impactful after the fact of his death, of course, because his development in this episode was just amazing. Seeing him just becoming this leader, this person just going out of his way to help all these sick people, even though he knows it puts him in harm's way, he did it anyways, and seeing Maggie going to help him and all that, just a really intense sequence, especially with Glenn being sick. I mean, that was intense. I mean, seeing Glenn basically puking up blood and coughing it up, and oh my god, that was insane. And then at the same time, you had Carl and Rick dealing with the walkers knocking down the fence situation, which was also insanely intense, having one of the coolest sequences in the entire Walking Dead franchise, seeing Rick and Carl fighting side by side against a herd of zombies with machine guns. That was awesome. And it really showed development in Carl, and that little look that Rick gave him, really well done acting by Andrew Lincoln, by the way, looking at Carl like, holy shit, my son is a goddamn, like, Terminator at this point. Like, that was just such, it wasn't like a look like I'm proud of my son, it was a look like I'm worried. I'm worried that my son is not who he used to be. Which, it's a good thing for this world, because you don't want your son to be soft, but at the same time, he's still your son, he's still your little boy. And seeing him being this killer, I mean, especially what happened just last season where he gunned that kid down in the season 3 finale, he was like kind of worried for Carl there. And I think that look was so important. One of my favorite looks in any episode ever. I mean, it's just such an iconic moment. And then, of course, the episode ended with the governor in the woods lurking around, and that was a great cliffhanger to end the episode, leading into the 2 Governor Soul episodes, which weren't my favorite episodes ever, but they were still pretty cool. The episode itself was intense, it was emotional, it was just really well written. I liked the dialogue a lot between, especially with Herschel and Maggie and all that good stuff. It was exciting. I really liked Interment, and I'm pretty sure a lot of other people did too, because it has 8.9 out of 10 stars on IMDb, which, like I said, the ratings, especially for season 7 and 8 episodes, they're a lot lower because there was this big hate bandwagon against the series, which obviously I'm not taking into account other people's opinions on these episodes. This is my list, my opinions, that's all. And coming in number 23 spot, I've got season 3 episode 8, which was titled Made to Suffer, of course, the mid-season finale of season 3. I loved this episode from back then. I remember this was one of my favorite episodes at the time. Like, when season 3 ended, I was like, yo, Made to Suffer is awesome. Like, that's an exciting ass episode. This is kind of the episode that really pushed me to not only saying I'm gonna definitely continue watching the show, but this was the point where I was like, yeah, this is definitely my favorite show. I think this episode did that. Some episodes previously, like Killer within season 3, were the ones that really got me to actually want to watch it every week. But this episode made me think, yeah, this is my favorite show. Made to Suffer was the first kind of action-packed sort of an episode, like a shootout type deal that we ever had in The Walking Dead. And that changed how the series is portrayed, because previously it was much smaller scaled. And this episode kind of expanded that smaller scale to a goddamn battle in Woodbury. And it was exciting, it was intense, seeing our people in risk and shooting people and trying to rescue. It was a rescue mission for, of course, Glenn and Maggie. They got them safely, which is awesome. Seeing, of course, the fight between Michonne and the governor was such an intense fight. Of course, governor getting his eye stabbed, that was cool. Seeing the emotion between the governor and his daughter Penny, who was obviously a walker, was really well done. Really great acting by the governor, of course. Just some awesome stuff all around. And the episode ended with a really awesome cliffhanger too. I like cliffhangers when they're done right, and a lot of these episodes have really good cliffhangers. And honestly, this was one of them. How they ended it, with the governor standing there saying, "What should we do with these two?" The Daryl and Myrtle, of course, and saying that we should kill them. That was awesome. We also had the introduction of Tyrese and Sasha and the other people to the prison, which wasn't the very exciting portion of the episode, but it was still there, and it still introduced these characters who ended up being kind of important to the series thus forward. I mean, Sasha was really important for later episodes. She ended up being one of the main characters for a long time, and no one really expected that at the time either. We were all like, oh, this character's going to die soon. It's still really cool. This episode is a 9.0 out of 10 stars on IMDb. Definitely deserving, maybe just a little bit less, but still kind of deserving in many different ways. So that comes in at the 23rd spot. Coming into number 22 spot, I've got Season 8, Episode 13, which was titled Do Not Send Us Astray. This was, of course, one of the Season 8 battle episodes, the very much anticipated Hilltop battle episode. I definitely think it could have been a lot better. I definitely think my expectations were a lot higher than what they were. I think this should have been like a top 10 episode, but it ended up being around 22. It was still really, really awesome, though, for what it was. So the episode started off very intense. We knew they were attacking. We knew Negan wasn't with them, so they were there to kill. They were not there to injure or just show a message like they were for most of the other battles. No, they were here to kill. And that put a lot of tension on the group. And of course, this big battle ensued, which most of it was well shot. I think the majority of it was. It was a little dark in some sequences. It was a little bit hard to see some things going on. But I really liked everything that had to do, especially that one scene when the lights come up and Rick comes out with the AK-47. He's lighting people up. That was awesome. That was such a cool scene. And I mean, I love battle episodes, and this was one of them. And that just made such awesome stuff to happen. And that wasn't the whole episode either. It wasn't just like the whole episode was a big battle. No, they kind of let it some time to breathe, gave us some good character moments. Of course, with Sadiq and talking to Rick, which was a really well dialogue-esque scene. I really liked what was going on with that. We got to see everyone back together again, too, which we haven't really seen them back together for a while, and that was awesome. And then, of course, the people started turning during the night. I saw a lot of people complaining, oh, people should have heard the walker tumbling down the stairs. All these stupid nitpicks that people love to do during the season. That's one of the reasons people hated Season 8, because there was a big bandwagon around it. People hated it, so they said, oh, I'll hate it too, because maybe I'm not enjoying it as much, but I don't care. I'm going to find things to hate. You know, the show's been on for so long, and I'm just not enjoying it as much. So they start this bandwagon, and everyone else is hating it, and they think, oh, they're hating it, so I should hate it too. So they find reasons to hate it, like stupid nitpicks, like the walkers should have made more noise when they were tumbling down the stairs, and they said their episode sucks just because of that. I'm not going to say an episode sucks just because the walker didn't wake anyone up when it tumbled down the damn stairs. Okay, but that was really cool, seeing all the walkers turning and people, you know, being obviously stuck with them. It felt like Interment from Season 4, because it was the same deal, people turning in the middle of the night and killing people, and that made some really intense sequences. Morgan was still going crazy, and I really liked Morgan's character this season, and him going crazy was awesome to see, because Lenny James is such a good actor, so obviously his going crazy was just really fun to watch because of how good of an actor he is. And then that was the episode. I loved it, but IMDb doesn't, because they gave it 7.3 out of 10 stars, which, of course, Season 8, for some reason, IMDb and the people who decided to leave reviews hated everything Season 8 did. So, oh well, that comes in at number 22 spot. Coming into number 21 spot, I've got Season 5, Episode 16, which was titled Conquer, the Season 5 finale. This episode had so much going on. I mean, there was that one sequence, like the last 30 minutes of the episode. It was an extended episode, of course. There was so much happening. I mean, left and right. You had Glenn going out there and fighting Nicholas. Nicholas was trying to kill Glenn, obviously, and then they had this big fight, which was such an intense thing to watch. You had Sasha going crazy and almost killing Father Gabriel because Father Gabriel was yelling at her, and then Maggie coming to save the day. You had Rick finding walkers in the community and having to take them out himself, and that was freaking him out. You had the meeting going on where they were talking about whether or not to get rid of Rick. That was all such an intense stuff happening. And then, of course, we had Morgan out being introduced back into the series again after, you know, getting little teases of him here and there throughout the series. He was finally brought back into this episode, and it was exciting to see him. It was like, oh my God, we got Morgan back. And then seeing him come across Daryl and Aaron, who were obviously on that supply run sort of a deal, and they got trapped by that awesome Wolves trap, which I thought the Wolves was a really cool group, and I think their traps were really awesome. Seeing Aaron and Daryl have to fight together, which I think they're a really cool duet sort of a thing. I like seeing them together. I still want to see more of them within Season 10 of The Walking Dead. I hope we do. Seeing them out together and all this thing, and then Morgan coming to save him, and then everything connecting was really cool. Seeing Pete killing Reg, and then the ending, of course, with Rick, you know, Deanna telling Rick to do it, shooting Pete in the head, and then Morgan coming and being like, holy shit. And that was such an emotional part, and such like a, oh my God, so much stuff just happened within that past like 5 minutes, and I love everything of it. One of my favorite parts of this episode, though, was, of course, how it was when Rick came back and he gave that speech, he gave that really heartfelt speech. I love Rick's speeches, and this was one of the best ones. He was talking about how they need to, learn his ways. He can't learn their ways. That's not how it's going to go. You need to learn our ways, or else you will all die. And while he's doing this, they're showing people coming together. They're showing Sasha, Maggie, and Father Gabriel holding hands and praying. They're showing Glenn helping Nicholas, even though he literally just tried to kill him. And Maggie and Sasha praying with Father Gabriel. Father Gabriel literally just said to Deanna an episode or two before that these people are horrible and you should throw them out in the community. Maggie's still accepting that. Glenn is still accepting Nicholas. It was such a well-rounded thing, but you also have to realize there's people you can't accept, like Pete. And so Rick said he has to go. He has to go. He's a problem, and he literally just killed Reg. And then Morgan comes, the person who has a completely different view at this point in the story, and he's thinking everyone should have a second chance. But Pete, in this case, Rick didn't think so. I love the writing in this episode. I love the dialogue. Such a good episode. IMDb gives it a 9.3, which is deserving. Maybe a little bit less, but still pretty deserving. Coming in the number 20 spot, I've got Season 8, Episode 16, which was titled Wrath, the Season 8 finale. This episode was really cool. Not only did I see it in theaters, which that made it really exciting, but it was also just a really well-rounded episode. I gotta say, though, it's the Season 8 finale. It's the end of the all-out war. It should have been an all-out war. I know what people are gonna say. They always complain about it, but it was still exciting. It was still awesome nonetheless. I'm not going to let my high expectations get in the way of whether or not an episode was actually good. I wanted there to be a big-ass war in this episode, or battle, I guess you can say, but we did have the all-out war throughout the season. We had episode 13, which was a big battle, episode 8, episode 2, all the different, there were big battles, but I wanted the ending of it to be another big battle. It ended up being like a 4-minute battle, which wasn't the most exciting thing in the world, but in terms of storytelling, the soundtrack, the dialogue, the character development, I loved this episode. I mean, yeah, it wasn't the most insane, holy shit episode, but I loved a lot of it. First of all, the flashbacks to Carl and Rick walking, Rick kind of reading out a letter to Carl in the end was heart-touching. I love that. I love, the sequence between Rick and Negan is one of my favorites in the series. I mean, Rick and Negan fought a lot this season. They had like at least 3 or 4 fights, and this one, even though it wasn't the most action-packed or fun, like episode 12, that was one of the most awesome fights between the two of them, but this was a shorter fight, but the emotion behind it was there. You know, Rick saying, this doesn't have to happen this way. Carl said, it doesn't have to happen this way, and he is right. And Negan realizes he was right. Now, Negan crying there, people didn't really understand that. They're like, well, is Negan crying over Carl's death? That was not why he was crying. That's not why he was crying at all. He was not crying because he was thinking about Carl and he wants to cry because he loves Carl or something. No, that wasn't why he teared up. He was tearing up because he realized that Rick was right. In that moment, he realized, what the hell is he doing with his life? Why am I fighting? Why am I doing this? We could be working together. I mean, is this really helping us? I mean, I've lost way too much men. I've lost so much in this battle. And now I'm sitting here about to kill you thinking it's going to be all good, but it's not, because my people are defeated. We just had so many of them die in the battle that we just had. Before this, we had so many people die. So that was heart-touching to me. And I love Negan's character. I really, really do. And this was one of those scenes that I really liked a lot with him. And that's not all I liked either. I liked the Eugene doing the bullet thing. I thought that was kind of obvious that was going to happen, but it was still really awesome to see it happen. I loved Morgan kind of realizing, yeah, I guess he doesn't have to kill everyone, even though he probably should kill most people, but not everyone. You know, some people we have to, obviously. And he understood that, and he kind of came to a middle ground between the two extremes. He was either kill everyone or kill no one. It was kind of in between, and I really liked that. And then the ending of the episode kind of tying everything up together, seeing Rick talking to Negan, saying he's going to spend the rest of his life in prison. I love that. And I loved how well it tied up. I mean, this could have been a series finale, the way it tied everything up. I'm glad it wasn't, but it still could have been. And it did definitely work well into the season 4 premiere of Fear the Walking Dead. I liked how they showed them both the same day, and you can see them both in theaters. It was really fun to watch. And yeah, Wrath is a good episode in my opinion. I think it's well written. I love the soundtrack, one of the best soundtracks in any episode. I mean, literally every one of these episodes, there's something good to say about the soundtrack. The Walking Dead has had its ups and downs, but one thing that has never been a low point is the soundtrack. I think the soundtrack has always been A+. Always. Bear McCreary, you are incredible. Incredible. So yeah, that comes in at number 20. Oh yeah, and I forgot to mention that IMDb gave it a 7.4, which is bullshit, but yeah, you know, that's how they feel about season 8, I guess. So yeah. Coming into number 19 spot, I've got season 8, episode 8, which was titled How It's Gotta Be. So this episode gets a lot of flack for one thing and one thing only, Carl's death. It literally has a 6.6 on IMDb only because of Carl's death. That's it. I guarantee you if Carl didn't die in this episode, it would still have a low rating because they hate season 8. But it would have a lot more. It would definitely a whole star higher, definitely like a 6, or no, like a 7.6 or something like that. But it has a 6.6 solely because people hated the fact that they had Carl die. And obviously he didn't die this episode, he died the next one, but this was one that they revealed the bite, which I didn't like it at first. I'll be honest with you, I didn't. I was kind of pissed. I was like, are you kidding me? You're really going to kill off Carl freaking Grimes? But after seeing that Henry took over the arc perfectly fine, and that's the only reason I wanted Carl to stay alive, because I really like the Carl Lydia arc in the comics. Only reason I wanted him to stay alive. But they gave it to Henry, and it worked just fine, and I actually loved how it worked. I liked it better because I think I honestly like Henry's actor more than Carl, so I'm actually glad they did what they did. And I liked how Rick still has something to live for. People were saying, oh, why would they kill off his son? That's like his motivation, pure motivation of the series. Well, you have to realize he has Judith. If he didn't have Judith, I would agree killing Carl is stupid. But he has Judith. It's a whole nother motivation for him. And she's younger and she's more vulnerable. And I think Carl's death did a lot for the series. It did a lot for Negan's character too. And the reason why it kept him alive made so much more sense. I think they could have built up it better. But regardless, you can't rate a whole damn episode just on the reveal of a death because that's it. I mean, come on. The episode has some really cool stuff otherwise. You, of course, have the bombing of Alexandria, which was awesome. I do wish they had at least one or two characters get blown up by a grenade, just like the comics, but nonetheless, it was still really cool to see Alexandria getting completely bombed to shreds, basically. Within this episode, you had the kingdom being attacked, which wasn't the most exciting stuff in the world, but yeah, it wasn't that great. You have Maggie getting stopped on the road by Simon and all that shit. That was intense. And then Maggie popping that one dude in the head. That was cool. I loved that. Soundtrack was phenomenal in this episode, as always, but it was remarkably good in this one. Rick versus Negan was such a cool fight. I know a lot of people were complaining that Rick could have easily killed Negan there, but I keep saying the same thing. You don't know how you would react in a situation until you're in that situation. Yes, watching it on your safe little couch, you're gonna criticize everything, but in this situation, you're actually in a fight with somebody, all emotional, all beaten up. You're not gonna think clearly in every situation. Rick obviously thought to just knock him with the bat. He could have, yes, probably swung at him and probably killed him pretty easily, but as he was going to swing anyways, I'm sure he would have gotten kicked by Negan anyways. So nitpicking a whole episode is just so annoying, and people love to do it for season 8 for some odd reason. I don't know. They don't nitpick earlier seasons. I don't see people nitpicking season 2 and 3 when I can go through those episodes and nitpick so much more. But people love to nitpick the little things that are just like, if you think about it for like more than 10 minutes, it's not even a problem. That's honestly how it is. But that fight was still really cool nonetheless. I loved how they had that intense pulse music going on that, was used during the Governor era. And you had that conversation between Negan and Carl, where Carl was... I just love Carl. Bringing back Carl's theme song too in this episode, which he has that own personal theme song, that was really cool. I loved that. And I did like the reveal of Carl's bite. I thought it was a well done reveal. If, they're going to do it, they did it well, I think. They didn't kill him by the hands of the saviors, because then Rick would just kill Negan. Rick would never keep Negan alive if that was the case. But the fact that it was a walker just made it so much more impactful. And it showed that walkers are still a threat regardless of being in a battle. You know what I mean? I like that. I definitely dig this episode a lot. Of course, you had Dwight helping the group out, shooting up some of the saviors. That was awesome. You had Eugene helping out Father Gabriel, which Eugene's character was all over the place, I think, within this season. But I don't know. I liked how he at least redeemed himself in the end. So yeah, this episode came in at the number 19 spot. Coming in the number 18 spot, I've got season 9, episode 13, which is titled Choke Point. So Choke Point was awesome. One of the most anticipated episodes just because of Daryl versus Beta. I mean, that was something I was looking forward to for a long time, from the little promo teasers for the second half of season 9, and then seeing it actually in action was awesome. I loved it. I think it was a really well done fight. I do wish it was a little longer, but it was still really exciting. That whole battle sequence at that warehouse between Daryl and Beta, and Daryl between a couple other Whisperers, and the way he killed them was just so badass. Having Henry fight some of them was cool. Connie fighting some of them was cool. Dog fighting some of them was really cool. I loved all of that. The soundtrack, the Whisper theme that happened, it was played at some really well done times, and I just thought that was really well directed, the whole fight sequence between Daryl and Beta. I loved it a lot. You had some other stuff going on, like the Kingdomers meeting up with the Highwaymen, which wasn't the most exciting stuff in the world, but it was still something to enjoy and watch and have a good time with. And I think season 9 did a lot of good things. People keep making that argument that it saved the show. I don't think it saved the show. I think it definitely improved upon some points in the series. I think a lot of the directing was improved in this season. Writing, I think, was kind of the same. I don't really think that it had that much better writing than previous seasons. I think it's just about as amazing as it's always been. But I definitely think they got some really good camera work for these episodes. The little romance going between Henry and Lydia, I really enjoyed. People were sick of it. I don't know why. People just hate anything that has to do with teenagers and The Walking Dead for some reason. But I thought it was nice, and it was kind of realistic. I mean, that's kind of how relationships are for teenagers. They don't really just, it's not the same as it is for, older people. I think that's why a lot of adults didn't really enjoy that whole relationship, because they felt like it was forced. But a lot of kid relationships, especially in a world where that's the only people they're going to find, they're going to get attracted to each other much more often, or much quicker, and they're going to feel a connection. And I think they felt the connection pretty quick, for reasons that kind of they showed in the previous episodes, in episode 9 and 10 and stuff like that. So yeah, I really like this episode, and IMDb does too. They gave it an 8.5. I think it probably deserves that, maybe a little bit higher than that, but yeah, that's pretty much deserving. So that comes in at 18. Coming in at the number 17 spot is season 2, episode 13, which was titled Beside the Dying Fire, the season 2 finale. This was actually the first episode of The Walking Dead I've ever seen. I remember my friend showed me it when I was probably in 5th grade maybe, and I was like, yeah, that's cool, I guess. I didn't really know it was a show at the time. I thought it was a movie. I was like, oh, it's kind of like Dawn of the Dead, right? And I was just like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'll check out season 3, because it was like about to premiere within the next year or so. And I didn't really get into it until season 3, of course, though. But this episode was still, looking back on it, amazing. I loved the first 10 minutes. I mean, come on. Who doesn't love a awesome walking herd? This episode is like, I would say, if you want an episode that defines The Walking Dead, I don't know, maybe an episode that defines like the first few seasons, maybe. But in terms of the whole series, like, what's the definitive episode that defines the series? Like, I want to say No Way Out, but at the same time, I don't know. In terms of the first few seasons, though, I would say this episode definitely defines it pretty well, because you have that walker action in the beginning. You have that giant herd coming to the farm and just going right through it. And that was intense, watching everyone have to fight it off, everyone running away, being scared of it, because it was a giant herd. This is the biggest herd they've seen, and it was running right through their farm. Of course, you have some things like Herschel having limited ammo in his shotgun, but I'm not one to nitpick, so who cares? It was still awesome seeing Herschel stand there going psh, psh, and just lighting walkers up, and seeing Carl and Rick on their own was cool. The father-son bonding type shit was happening, and yeah, definitely the sequence ended pretty quick, but the rest of the episode did not disappoint. I mean, you had Rick telling the rest of the group that they're all infected. That was a huge shock. You had Rick telling the rest of the group that he killed Shane. That was a huge shock. You had Rick going off at the end of the episode, saying that this is not a democracy anymore, and I'm leading this damn group whether you like it or not. He was going insane. And the acting behind that speech was so well done. I mean, he was just pissed off at everyone for being mad at him for killing his like, basically his brother at that point. Everyone was like pissed at him and like kind of scared of him, and he was standing there like, why are you guys scared? He tried to kill me. I did what I had to do. And little did we know, that's what Carl kind of said the next season. He was saying, I did what I had to do after he gunned that kid down in the woods. But obviously it wasn't the same deal at all, but it was still cool to see Carl kind of almost following in his dad's footsteps in a way. I don't know. I really liked this episode. I'm pretty sure a lot of other people did too, because it has 9.2 out of 10 on IMDb. It was a really good way to finish off the farm arc of the series, season 2, of course, and I loved it. And of course, the introduction of Michonne in the very end, which was really cool as well. So, and the prison, of course. You see the prison in the background. That was awesome. So that comes in number 17. Coming in the number 16 spot, I've got Evolution, which was season 9, episode 8, the mid-season finale, season 9. This episode, oh my god, I have a reaction on my channel actually to what happened, of course, Jesus' death. That was the coolest sequence. It was such a well choreographed scene as well, when seeing Jesus fighting off those walkers in the fog. But the way he swung at that walker, well, Whisper, of course, and then the Whisper ducks and then stabs the sword through Jesus' side. The way that was shot and edited is just so well done. Oh my god, I can watch that scene a million times and never get bored of it. And for people who saw the comics, we kind of saw something coming. We knew one of the Whispers were going to come out eventually. But seeing that happen and watching people's reactions who haven't seen the comics or don't really know about the Whispers, holy shit. The reaction to that is insane. They're like, oh my god. I mean, such cool reactions came from that scene, and I love that a lot. And then, of course, hearing the Whispers throughout the woods. I mean, just the ominous Whisper-esque sort of Easter eggs and stuff like that were happening, and the little teases that were happening throughout this entire episode was awesome. It felt so scary, and you were just waiting for it to happen throughout the entirety of it. Of course, you also had the little sequences with Henry, with the kids, which a lot of people didn't like, but it was necessary build-up. We needed it for, of course, the introduction of Lydia and his relationship with Lydia. We needed to see him get stuck in his jail cell somehow, so they have him, sticking around with the kids a little bit, which obviously, like I said, was not the most exciting part of the episode. The beginning was cool too, seeing everyone kind of meeting up at the hilltop, and the fact that they were kind of like not excited to see Michonne, and we kind of learn as to why that's the case, because Michonne didn't want to help them. Michonne didn't even want to be a part of any community events. She didn't want to support them or trade with them anymore. She just wanted their community to be their own community and away from everything else, which made sense after episode 14. But at this point, we were like, what the hell is happening? But it was still cool to see that, of course. And then, of course, the Whisper stuff with Daryl, Aaron, Eugene, Jesus, Michonne later on was just so awesome. So this episode comes in number 16. It has an 8.9 out of 10 on IMDb, which is pretty much accurate to what I would give it, to be honest. Coming in number 15 spot, I've got season 6, episode 12, which was titled Not Tomorrow Yet. So this episode's got a 9.0 on IMDb, which I think is pretty much deserving, 100%. This episode was, of course, the plan getting set into action of attacking the outpost, one of the outposts, and getting their people back and trying to kill everyone there. And that they only thought this was the only outpost of Negan. They didn't think they had other outposts. They thought this was it. So they were going in with that in mind. And of course, it was brutal seeing them killing people in their sleep. And it was a really intense battle, like at least 10 minutes long, maybe a little shorter, seeing them fighting these people, shoot basically a big ass shootout within an enclosed area. I mean, I loved it. Seeing Rick lighting people up with his AK is always a pleasure to watch, and seeing the other group members getting some kills here and there, Glenn killing his first people, that was cool. I mean, obviously he ended up dying a few episodes later anyways, but still awesome stuff. And even just the build up before this, I mean, you had Carol doing some cool stuff, having that little relationship with Tobin, that was cool. Seeing just the group planning it out and then executing it, and then Maggie and Carol getting kidnapped by the people at the very end of the episode, which was definitely a big cliffhanger. They had that awesome song by, was it Hozier or whatever at the end of the episode, Arnest's Lullaby or something, really cool song. I like that song a lot. They had it playing at the end. Just an all-round, well-developed episode that doesn't really have the most impactful writing or emotion. It's more so just a very fun and entertaining episode to watch. And not in a fun, like in a happy way. I mean a fun in like a action-packed like battle way. And there's a lot of episodes like that. Like I said, episode 13 of season 8 is another deal where it's like a battle, and it's fun to watch. It's fun. It's entertaining. The entertainment factor is definitely a big portion of episodes. I can't just forget about that sort of entertainment. So I definitely think this episode is a well-deserving of this number 15 spot. And yeah, there you go. So coming in number 14, I've got Last Day on Earth, which was season 6, episode 16, and season 6 finale. This drives me insane because this episode only has a 6.4 out of 10 on IMDb, which is one of the lowest rated episodes in the entire series, only because of the cliffhanger. People see the cliffhanger and say, this episode sucks because they ended on a cliffhanger, a big cliffhanger. I'm going to give it a 1 point out of 10. That drives me nuts. Like, you're telling me you're going to look at a cliffhanger, say that cliffhanger sucked, and you're going to forget about the entirety of the episode. You're going to forget about every other minute. That's why I can't stand these reviews, because these aren't like critic reviews. But that's the thing though. These are obviously user reviews, so obviously people are going to rate it based on their experience, and they're going to get pissed at the cliffhanger. So they're going to say 1 out of 10, even though the rest of the episode was very, very good. Even critics were giving this episode bad reviews. I'm sitting here like, bro, what? Did you guys not watch the rest of it? The intensity this episode brought, just like the group didn't know that the saviors were this big, and seeing them going, because they're on a mission to bring Maggie to the hilltop, and they can't do it because they're getting stopped by the saviors at every damn turn. It was such an intense episode, and you knew it was coming at the end. Comic readers knew it was coming, and I know that we didn't get to see it, which was unfortunate, but in the end, I actually really liked how it turned out. Now, at the time, I hated the cliffhanger. I was like, this is so stupid. I didn't say the rest of the episode sucked, though. I was like, well, this cliffhanger's stupid, but the rest of the episode's really good. That's what I said. But even afterwards, after seeing what happened, I actually changed my mind about the cliffhanger and said, you know what? That wasn't that bad. I'm actually kind of glad they did that, because it didn't take away from Negan's introduction. So people weren't freaking out about, whoever died. Rather, they were talking about Negan's introduction. But instead, people obviously decided to just hate on the cliffhanger and say this was trash, which was unfair. But the way it turned out, and the way how episode 1 of season 7 turned out, makes me just say, I'm kind of glad how they did it, because if they did it any differently, then episode 1 of season 7 would be very different, and episode 1 of season 7 is a freaking masterpiece. You're going to see it a little bit later on the list. Well, actually, very later on the list. So the way it turned out, I don't know. I liked it. A lot of stuff happened in this episode, too. You had Morgan going to save Carol out in the open, and Carol was obviously almost killed, basically. Morgan finally killing someone was awesome to see as well. And then the introduction of the kingdom, very end of the episode, seeing the guy from the kingdom coming and being like, I'll get you guys some help. That was cool. And I don't know. This stuff with the group on the road when the RV was just so intense. And seeing them just being so cocky, especially when they were talking to Simon on the road, they were like so cocky. And then at the end, they realized we have to do something else. And there was a very emotional scene between Eugene and Abraham, where they hugged out because Abraham realized that Eugene's a fighter, man. He is a fighter. He's a survivor, right? He might not be able to do the same things he can do, but he's still a fighter, and he's still brave enough to do something like this, giving up possibly his life for them. And they end up all getting caught in the end. It was a really heartfelt moment. They ended up all getting caught in the woods, and just seeing all the people surrounding them, and oh my God, the heart was racing in that scene. I was like, oh my God, what's going to happen? And then, of course, Negan's introduced, and he bashes in someone's head. Now, that was already, like, holy shit enough. I do think it would have been better if they killed Abraham there, and then the episode ended with Daryl punching Negan, and Negan saying, back to it. And then we just see him swinging at somebody, but we don't know who it was, and then we end up finding out that it was Glenn next episode. I feel like they could have done that, and it could have worked better. It could have made people less pissed off, and it would have been a little bit more shocking. But I don't know how it turned out. I'm still happy with, honestly. I am. To this day, I think it's such a well-written episode. The soundtrack's good. The acting is just phenomenal, especially between Andrew Lincoln. Just seeing him, like, shaking on the floor, like, oh my God, it was good. Lauren Cohen as Maggie was doing great, too. I really like this episode. And it's such a shame that people just give it a bad rep because of the cliffhanger alone, which is unfortunate. But yeah, regardless, it comes in number 14. Coming in number 13 spot, I've got season 8, episode 2, which is titled The Damned. Now, this is another one that I'm very confused about because it has a 6.6 on IMDb, and I never understood that. I never did. I remember at the point of this episode, I loved it, and I loved it for a while afterwards, but people always went back to this episode and said it was trash, and I never understood why. I was always so confused as to why people hate this episode. They said the shooting was badly directed, and every time I rewatch it, I'm like, where do you see bad directing in this episode? I don't see it. Like, I've rewatched this episode many times, and I think the cinematography was beautiful. You could really tell what was going on in a lot of the scenes. You can really tell what was happening. There's a lot of different shootouts going on. You had, let's see, you had Aaron leading that charge against that little outpost, which was some of the most exciting stuff happening, the shootout that was going on there. People say it's just mindless shooting, but I mean, it's a battle episode. We're gonna see that. And it's not mindless shooting. There are things in the line. People are dying. Francine died. Tobin got shot. Eric got shot and ended up dying the next episode. You have things happening that are obviously, impactful. You had the Kingdomers on the road. They were just kind of on the road the whole episode. They didn't actually do anything of much importance because they were chasing after that one guy who might alert others. Then you had Rick and Daryl going to that one place to try to clear it out, and then Rick fighting that one dude, which one of my favorite parts of the episode was Rick killing that guy in that badass fashion, going into the room and seeing that there was a little girl in there, and that he was only trying to protect the little girl, which is exactly what he's doing. He's trying to protect Judith. He's fighting this war for his family. And that was emotional. And then he looks in the mirror and sees himself like, holy shit, I just did that. And I didn't have to, because I literally just killed myself. That's basically what he was saying, thinking to himself, which was really impactful. And I don't know, I really, really, really liked that. And then, of course, you had the Hilltoppers, some of the Hilltoppers, some Alexandrians that were with Tara, Jesus, Morgan, all of them attacking the outpost from season 6. That was awesome, seeing them just go and killing a bunch of people. To this day, I can't stand this one scene. This scene is going to piss me off. It's the only thing I really did not like about this episode, was why the hell would Jesus... why was Jesus keeping this guy alive? Why was he... Look, I understand he doesn't want to kill people. He doesn't think it's necessary to kill people. But this guy literally just sat there, pretended to piss himself, then got up and pointed a gun at him, almost put his life at risk, and then you're just going to keep him alive. Now, I would be okay with that if Jesus was clearly a pro-life kind of a guy, right? But he wasn't, because literally 10 minutes before, earlier in the episode, he was popping guys from behind. He was shooting guys in the back with the suppressors. He killed people. He killed tons of people. If he was more reluctant to keep them alive, I would be okay with him doing that. But he wasn't. So it was such an inconsistent character decision. I hated it for that. But the only nitpick of this episode, and I don't know if it's really a nitpick. It's a little bit bigger than a nitpick, but it's not enough for me to say this episode's bad or anything. It doesn't deserve a 6.6. That's ridiculous. But I loved everything else. I think seeing Morgan going just insane and just shooting a bunch of people was such a cool and intense thing to watch. And then, of course, the episode ends with Morales coming back, which I still wish they did more with him. I understand the actor probably just couldn't do it, but I really wish they did more with him. The main reason for that, which it was, just a cool Easter egg, that was one of the main reasons for it, but it was also important because it kind of showed that the saviors aren't all bad. Now, they already kind of did that. They've showed that the saviors aren't all bad people, but this was more familiar to Rick. It was someone that that used to be a part of his group, right? From the back, someone who was just taking care of his family, and it kind of put it more into Rick's head that we can't just kill them all, and they really needed to set that home. And there was a bunch of moments here and there throughout the season that kind of did that. So it made more sense for Rick to allow the Saviors to stay alive, to allow Negan to stay alive. It made more sense because of these little moments that shows human sides of the Saviors. And one of the human sides was, of course, a character that used to be part of their group in season 1. So I like that a lot. I think this episode deserves better. It comes in the number 13 spot. Coming in the number 12 spot, I've got season 8, episode 12, which was titled The Key, which has an 8.1 on IMDb, which definitely deserves more than that, like a 9.1, maybe 9.2, maybe probably even higher than that. This episode was exciting for many different reasons. Of course, the Rick versus Negan was probably the most exciting. I loved the battle between them. It could have been a little bit more exciting, a little bit longer, but it was still really cool, especially seeing flaming Lucille happening. I know a lot of people complained about Rick missing too many shots, and I got to say, bro, shoot a gun yourself. They're not the most accurate things in the world. Yes, he's a cop, but cops don't use AK-47, so obviously he's not going to be that accurate with an AK-47. Okay, I just want to get that out of my head a little bit, because people expect people to have pinpoint accuracy or something like it's Call of Duty. No, it's real life. Okay, this is based on a real life universe, so guns are not pinpoint accurate unless you're like freaking, I don't know, Rambo or something. But the fight between them was really cool, but it's not even the best. I mean, and that probably is the best part of the episode, but it's not probably the only amazing thing about this episode. I really liked Georgie and her group, which a lot of people didn't, but I really thought that was cool how they have this, the Key to the Future sort of a book where they're trying to trade knowledge with people on how to live a life in this world and how to grow crops in good ways, how to build different things, and all these awesome human medieval achievements that were made that they can do without technology and without the futuristic stuff that obviously they don't exist anymore because they don't have as much power, as much equipment that they would have in the previous world. It basically just had to rebuild society. I really liked that. And then of course the fight between Rick and Negan was obviously the most exciting. That one portion where they had Flaming Lucille and they were in that dark basement with all the walkers, that was awesome. The whole house they were fighting I thought was really cool. The conversation between Simon and Dwight I liked a lot. It led very well into the next episode, where of course they were going to just say screw it and kill everyone, rather than listening to Negan and just showing a show of force. And then you had, of course, Jadis capturing Rick in the end of the episode, or not capturing Rick, capturing Negan, which was a cool surprise. And yeah, not really much to say about this episode other than it was just entertaining. I mean, I really enjoyed watching it. I remember how excited I was for it, and it definitely paid off in the end. That conversation between Rick and Daryl too was a must in the beginning of the episode. I really liked that conversation. But yeah, The Key comes in at number 12. Coming at number 11, I've got season 7, episode 16, which is titled The First Day of the Rest of Your Life, which has a 7.6 on IMDb, which is so stupid. This just deserves so much more than that. And a lot of the reasons are nitpicks. I have went through the reviews of this episode a lot because a lot of people like to nitpick different things, and I always try to find explanations for things, and they're not that hard to find the explanations, to be completely honest. So the nitpicks that people had specifically for this episode were they didn't like how, if you look really closely to the shootout scenes, there were some scenes where it was like, okay, this guy was in the open and he somehow didn't get shot by anyone, or they showed people in the background not shooting, like it was a scavenger in front of like an Alexandrian and they weren't shooting him or something like that. And I'm here to say, just look closely. You can really tell what was happening. People are complaining about the tiger too not killing everyone. I'm like, because Ezekiel trained the damn tiger. He said he can call out who to kill, and they will go after that person. I assume so. Even if that's not the case, even if tigers are gonna kill everyone, well, bro, he didn't, so who cares? Dude, it happened. He jumped on the one dude. I think Shiva's a pretty well-trained tiger. I know they're very different than, dogs or something like that, so it's not as easy to train them, but, I mean, come on, Daryl was petting the damn thing and it wasn't biting him at all, so I don't know, I think it's just a very well-trained tiger. That's kind of what it seemed like. To complain about that is just a stupid nitpick because that was a really cool scene. The whole battle of the episode was awesome. The music was really cool. I loved, obviously, what happened there. I mean, I know a lot of people don't like how Negan was so reluctant to kill Carl because the next season he was not going to kill him and didn't want to kill them. And, Carl was kind of just okay with him staying alive and all that. And I don't know, to me that wasn't that big of a deal. People made a much bigger deal about it, but I think it worked out in the end. Not in the best way possible, but the episode itself was still really exciting, seeing Shiva coming and attacking the dude from behind and Negan just freaking out. Seeing the Hilltoppers and the Kingdomers coming to save the day, that was awesome. I loved a lot of the other dialogue in this episode. Sasha's death was kind of weirdly done, but it wasn't bad. I thought it was pretty cool. And Carl going like Terminator style against some of the scavengers, and I thought the scavenger betrayal was not obvious. It was obvious for me, but for others, I could see why you wouldn't see it coming, which made for a shocking moment. And I love shocking moments. They're really cool. Makes for some good reactions. So, yeah, I think the episode as a whole was pretty damn good. I definitely think the rating on IMDb is ridiculously low for how great I think it really is. But I thought it just set off the war pretty well. You know, it got us ready for this big all-out war next season. And then the season ended really well with a beautiful speech by Maggie, which had a really good soundtrack behind it as well. So, yeah, that comes in at number 11. Coming into number 10 spot, we are now in the top 10. I consider all these episodes to be amazing. Top 3, probably even top 5 are like masterpieces in my book. But coming in number 10, I've got Season 4, Episode 16, which was titled A. This episode was, I think, very, very underrated. People don't usually put it this high, but that beginning scene, or that one of the earlier scenes, is what made it for me personally. So, I like the flashbacks, of course, with the prison. Seeing Herschel again was cool. I like that. But with the scene that really made this episode in the top 10 is the scene where they were attacked by Joe and the Claimers. I mean, that was like a holy shit scene. That was intense. That was scary. Seeing Carl almost getting raped by that guy. I mean, I'm assuming he was trying to do that. And then seeing Rick just losing it was so impactful on his character. I mean, seeing him just going, fuck it, and biting out Joe's throat. Oh my God, I love that. And then when he gets up, grabs a knife and says, he's mine. And he goes up to the big dude who was, touching Carl and shit. And then he just stabs the knife through his stomach and starts lifting it up slowly, stabbing him one by. Oh my God, I love that scene. I love everything about this scene. And then they show a close-up on Carl's eyes, who was pretty shocked at this moment. It was such a well-done scene. I really, really liked it. And then that wasn't it. That alone was really cool. And then you see the group just slowly going about their life, and then they come across Terminus, and then we slowly see hints of Terminus being kind of off, and then they're attacked, and then put into a train cart and stuck there. So, and of course it ends with Rick saying they're messing with the wrong people, or screwing with the wrong people, whatever he said. And of course, I like the uncensored version where he said you're fucking with the wrong people better. I like that a lot more, but I really like this episode for that scene alone. I mean, that was awesome. Gareth, of course, with the introduction of him at Terminus. Gareth was a really cool character in my opinion. Not my favorite villain. Obviously, Negan I think is much better. I think the Governor's much better. But Gareth was supposed to be some of a smaller sort of a villain. So was Joe, really, and I think Joe was really cool too. And I just really have a good time watching this episode again and again and again. It's such an impactful, emotional episode, and it didn't even have a character death. It was so emotional without even a death. That conversation between Michonne and Carl too, where Michonne was telling Carl all about Andre, was really emotional. I mean, that was like heart freaking breaking, and then seeing them hug it out was really nice to see. I like this episode a lot, and not a lot of people agree with me, but I think it's good. It has a 9.2 on IMDb, which is pretty deserving, maybe a little bit higher, but yeah, comes in at number 10. And coming in number 9, I've got No Sanctuary. I'm going to be real with you guys. This is Season 5, Episode 1. I think this episode's overrated. I think it is. It has a 9.6 on IMDb. I think it maybe deserves like a 9.3. I still think it's a top 10 episode, but I do think it's overrated. People definitely give it much more than I think it deserves. Like, people give this like top 3, top 2. No Sanctuary is great, though. I think some of the best parts of it are, of course, Rick just being a badass. That's always fun to watch. I mean, Rick being a badass is some of the best moments of the entire franchise. We have, of course, Carol being a badass too and coming in to save the day, which was awesome to see as well. Particular, that beginning sequence was brutal as hell. I mean, one of the most brutal scenes in the Walking Dead franchise, seeing them all get their throats slit like that right in front of them, and then seeing Carol save the day and Rick coming and attacking. And then Rick, oh my god, that one scene where Rick grabs the guy from behind with the AK, grabs the AK, and he lights up like 4 or 5 guys. One of the coolest scenes in the Walking Dead history, for sure. Rick using the AK-47 is always awesome, but this was the first time we get to see it, and I loved every second of it. Oh my god. Then, of course, we had the group come back together, killing all the walkers, and then, Daryl reuniting with Carol, and then all that. That was great. Rick reuniting with his child, Judith. That was great. Seeing Morgan in the after credits scene, that was great. All really cool stuff. Great episode. Great episode. The only downside, in my opinion, I hated the Tyrese and was that guy Martin or something like that stuff. I really did not like that stuff. I don't know what it was. It felt like it was so much of the episode. Like, it felt like they spent like 30% of the episode just on their conversations, and I did not have any interest in it at all. I think they should have spent that time with showing more of Terminus, maybe showing Rick and the gang coming across some more sick stuff within Terminus, maybe coming across more people that they kill, just something more interesting, because I really didn't like that much. I mean, seeing what happened there, and then of course the guy comes to try to snap Judith's neck, which was fucked up, but and then of course Tyrese saves the day. I like that, but like the rest of the episode, or rest of their conversation, didn't really feel necessary, And I still to this day don't like how they killed off Tyrese. I felt like it was way too early for his character. It didn't feel like the right time to do it. It didn't feel like the right way to do it. It didn't feel like it impacted many people other than Sasha, which Sasha was already impacted by Bob, so it was kind of just weird to see it happen like that. I don't know. I wasn't a big fan of their conversations, but the rest of the episode was intense, brutal, insane. I loved it. Comes in at number 9. Coming in at number 8, I've got Season 2, Episode 12, which was, of course, called Better Angels. This is a 9.1 on IMDb. This is, of course, the episode where Rick kills Shane. I love this episode. This is my favorite pre-season 3 episodes, so season 1 and 2, if we're counting those 2 seasons. This is my favorite episode between those 2 seasons. I mean, Shane's character development was some of the best character development in the entire franchise. I really do like his character and the way he turns from like this not really good guy, I would say, but like he hides his evil sides to him, and he slowly comes out as being this just fucked up person who's just this, he's full of hatred. And seeing him just saying, screw it, I gotta kill Rick because I love Lori. I want to be part of that damn family, and I know Rick is just getting in the way of everything. He's destroying everything that I'm trying to do with these people, and I know he's not going to keep them safe. So he says, screw it. He knows him keeping Randall alive, too, is a big problem. And so he lets Randall go, snaps his neck, and then moves on with what was happening. And just seeing, like, it was so unpredictable. I have no idea what the hell Shane was going to do next. And then, of course, he comes to Rick and says he's going to shoot him. And then, Rick gets the upper hand. He's smarter than him, so he ends up stabbing Shane through the stomach. Carl sees it. Carl freaks out, shoots Walker Shane. They realize, how the hell did he turn? Well, Rick realizes that, but he kind of knew they're all infected, so he kind of knew what was going on, but he kind of did at the same time. Carl just thought he was bitten. Then we see the episode ending with the awesome cliffhanger of the giant Walker herd in the background. All of that was really awesome. Loved it. Loved the beginning sequence, too. They had a really good soundtrack for it, and it was kind of like they're talking about how they're going to honor Dale after Dale's death. That was cool. And, I love this episode, man. It's not that action-packed. It's not that crazy. But that scene alone, the little face-off scene between Rick and Shane was just so impactful. I loved it. Comes in at the number 8 spot. So coming in number 7, I've got Season 8, Episode 9, which was titled Honor. Stupidly enough, this episode has a 6.8 on IMDb. Why do you think it does? Well, because Carl died in the episode, so of course people are going to hate on it. And it's in Season 8, so why wouldn't people hate on it, right? I love this episode. I know a lot of people don't, though. A lot of people act like it's boring. They're like, oh, bro, it's such a drag just watching them talking and talking and talking. I thought it was such a well edited and directed episode. I mean, the way they went from Carl's death to what was happening with the Kingdom and Morgan and Gavin, I thought was brilliant. And I'll explain why. So, first of all, I thought the episode was really good. The soundtrack was really amazing. It was Carl. You have to give him a good death. And they gave him a whole episode of conversations with, kind of final conversations with all the people he cares about, like Rick, Michonne, Judith, Daryl, Sadiq, all these different people. And seeing what his wisdom has kind of changed throughout the series, seeing the different thoughts and ideas he has about a future, really, really, really was impactful on the characters. And that made his death so important to me. It was really emotional too. I mean, I definitely cried a little bit in this episode, I'll be honest. You'll notice the top, the top 7 episodes are all tearjerkers. I just realized I love emotional episodes. I think that's just a thing. I like crying. I like those types of episodes. And I think these next 7 are all somewhat of tearjerkers in some ways. Not all of them. One of them, not so much, but most of them, they are. I don't know. I really like that though. But, so we see these emotional conversations going on, and we hear Carl talking about how they need to accept some people, that not all of them are bad, that they don't have to kill all of them, kind of like Morgan's been saying. And who do they show afterwards? They show Morgan hunting down to kill a guy running away from him. That was really well contrasted, the two different stories going on. People didn't understand why they did that. That's why they did it, because it's someone saying that they need to stop killing everyone, and they need to just realize they don't have to kill all the saviors. They can make peace. It's more important. And they contrast over to Morgan, who is trying to kill some guy. And then they show Henry stabbing the guy through his neck. Henry is a very different character to Carl shown within this episode. And the reason why I could tell that they were trying to go for a darker version of Carl with Henry is because of the soundtrack that plays right after he kills Gavin. You hear it. It starts off with Carl's, Carl's theme, right? They play Carl's theme. They play the first few notes of it. But then the last note that they play of it, which is supposed to be a higher pitch, it's a lower pitch or a darker, deeper pitch than Carl's theme. That shows to me that they were trying to contrast that story, and I really, really, really appreciate and thought that was really cool. So, I don't know, that to me was really well done. The dialogue was amazing. I loved the last moments, the acting between everyone. I mean, like I said, Chandler Riggs has never been my favorite actor, but he actually did a hell of a good job in this episode. So did Andrew Lincoln and Denai Guerrera. Amazing job. Amazing work. I like the beginning, how they showed Carl doing fun stuff, and I don't know, it's an emotional episode that was needed for a death like this, And at the same time, you had action. You had Carol going to save, Carol Morgan going to save Ezekiel from the kingdom, or the saviors. That was awesome. Such great stuff in this episode. And people who hate on it just hate on it because they don't want to see Carl go, but you have to realize that's not a good way to review episodes. So it comes in number 7. Coming at number 6, I've got season 3, episode 4, which is called Killer Within. This is a 9.3 on IMDb, which is pretty much deserving. I would say a little bit higher, maybe like a 9.5, 9.6. This episode was the first episode that made me realize that I'm definitely going to watch this show. I teared up even though I did not even know who these characters were. I remember when I watched it, I was like, I only seen like a few episodes before, and I was like really impacted by this episode. I mean, this is what got me to watch the show. Just the way they handled Lori's death was just so good. I mean, just the way she was talking to Carl in her last moments, so sad. And then seeing Maggie cutting her open and just screaming, and Carl, I mean, Chandler Riggs actually did a really good job in this episode. I loved it. And then, of course, we had all the other exciting stuff going on, like the group fighting against walkers in the tombs and in the courtyard, and Andrew coming and attacking the group, and then Oscar showing his loyalty to the group, and seeing Rick just breaking down at the end of the episode. And then we see that obviously showing for the rest of the season, which was such a well done story arc. And the soundtrack, oh my God, I love this episode so much, man. I always love to go watch it again and again and again because of how well they do handle his death. And of course, T-Dog died too, which was really sad. But we didn't really like T-Dog that. I mean, I didn't like T-Dog that much, so I mean, it was like kind of shitty to see him die that way. But you know, he wasn't that great of a character or anything, so it was something that I was able to accept. But it was really well done, death, and yeah, I appreciated how they did it. Appreciate this whole episode. Got me into the show, so I gotta give it some props for that at least. And the acting between everyone was great, like I said. I don't know. It's a really good episode. So Killer Within comes in at number 6. Now we're in the top 5. I consider these next 5 to be masterpieces. Nothing less, probably something more. Honestly, these episodes are so good. Coming in number 5, I've got season 9, episode 5, which was titled What Comes After. Of course, this was Rick Grimes' final episode. I mean, that would be disrespectful to not include his final episode within the top 5. I mean, I'm not just including it because it's his last episode. I'm including it also because it was just a really damn good episode. Seeing the hallucinations of Shane, Herschel, I don't really care too much about the Sasha hallucination, but seeing all these different hallucinations of old locations, old characters, was awesome, but that wasn't even the best parts of the episode. That was pretty cool in its own right. Negan breaking down when Maggie was going to kill him was such a well done scene. I mean, I love that scene in the comics, and I was really looking forward to it on screen, and seeing it happen, him just wanting to die, was like, that was heartbreaking. And I love Negan. I love the character. I know a lot of people don't, but I think he's such a well written character, and then seeing him just breaking down in the scene was like heartbreaking a little bit, even though he's obviously a douchebag. He killed Glenn, but still, you know, it was still heartbreaking to see this. And then Maggie put him back in the cell, of course. Seeing the group coming together to help Rick out, and Rick was doing this. He didn't want them to help. He wanted to get this herd away from the communities, even though he was injured. He was dying. He was bleeding out. And then he said, screw it, I gotta blow up this damn bridge. He does it. And we think he's dead. We think he's dead for a few seconds until, boom, no, he's alive. He is still out there. Jadis picked him up in a helicopter, and boom, he's off on his own. Now he's going to the movies. Such a well and good way to introduce us to this movie universe, in my opinion. And obviously, we're not going to see those movies probably till another year or two, but I can't wait for it. And then the ending, awesome. Seeing Magna in the group, and then Judith 6 years later. I mean, that was like, holy shit when we saw that. As a whole, the episode was just well written. I liked a lot of the dialogue between Rick and the hallucination people. I liked, of course, the dialogue between Maggie and Negan. I liked the soundtrack was so good. I liked the shots they had were so good. What Comes After is just a phenomenal episode. And honestly, it was so much better learning that Rick was going to have movies. Now, if Rick was not going to have movies and this was actually Rick's final episode in any Walking Dead-esque universe, I would be kind of pissed. I would not like this episode as much. I would be like, okay, well, we're just never going to see Rick again, but he's still alive. He's out there somewhere, whatever. I would be kind of pissed. But we got a good ending for him, and we knew that the movies were going to come, so we're going to get to see him more. We got a good ending for the show is what I meant. We're going to get to see more of him in the future, which is exciting. So what comes after episode 5? Episode 5 of season 9, which has a 9.1 on IMDb. It definitely deserves more than that for sure, but it's still good ranking for this episode. Coming in number 4th spot, I've got season 9, episode 15, which was titled The Calm Before, which has a 9.4 on IMDb. I think it deserves like a 9.7, maybe 9.8 even. Holy shit, this episode, man. I do wish that there was different characters on the spikes. I've said this a million times. I wasn't a big fan of the choices that they put on the pikes, but I still love every other moment of this episode. I mean, first of all, we had the fair in the beginning, which was exciting to see. We had the groups kind of just being out there, making sure there's less threats out there, because they know the Whispers are still out there. Then them coming across, Daryl, Daryl, Yumiko, Carol, Michonne coming across Alpha and Beta in the middle of the woods. That was intense. And then they get split up. Daryl gets shown the big-ass herd, which was awesome. And then they see the heads and the pikes later on. And the soundtrack, the music, the directing of this scene was I want to say it's the best scene in The Walking Dead history, but I don't know if it is. There might be like one or two scenes that are a little bit better, but this one is just such a well shot and directed scene. The soundtrack is phenomenal, and just the way they showed each of the heads, and they showed like the little, scene of people back home questioning where they are at the fair. It was such a big contrast. You had this fun fair going on, and at the same time, there was this slaughter that went down with some of their people, and that was impactful. And then seeing the end of Sadiq explaining the story of DJ Oz and Alec coming to save him, and then them getting killed too, it was heartbreaking. And seeing Carol, I love the acting between Carol and Daryl in that scene when Daryl jumped right in front of Carol, said, "Just look at me, don't look at him," because Henry's head was on a pike, and that broke her in such a significant way. So I love this episode. I love that scene. It's a long episode too. It's just such an intense episode all the way to that ending, and every time I watch it, it's just as good as it was the first time, and I love it. I love it. I really do love how they did it. I'm glad they did it the way they did, and it's got to come in at the number 4 spot. And now we're in the big 3. I call it the big 3 because it's like the best of the best. I mean, you can't get better than this. Episode 3 is The Day Will Come When You Won't Be, Season 7, Episode 1. This is, of course, the episode where Abraham and Glenn got their heads bashed in by Negan. Now, I remember watching this episode. I cried like a goddamn bitch. Oh my god. But the just suspense leading up to that scene in the beginning where they show Rick saying, "I'm gonna kill you," and then he gets taken away from Negan. You see all the little clips of, memories from each of the characters that Rick had with them, and seeing all the different people smiling, and it was just heartbreaking to see what actually ended up happening. And then seeing Rick just being broken down. I mean, the acting of Andrew Lincoln in this episode was phenomenal. Lauren Cohen's acting was phenomenal. Andrew Lincoln, or Rick, getting thrown to his knees in front of everyone and dragged across the floor by Negan was just, oh my god, I loved everything about it. I really did. Negan made some funny jokes the whole time because that's who Negan is, but you still had this dark, suspenseful, emotional scenes going on, and they were going to kill Carl or chop off his arm in front of him, and then Rick was forced to do it, but then he stopped him last second, and then you saw everyone just picking everyone up. Then you had showing Glenn's baby in that little dream sequence that Rick was thinking about what could have happened. I love the writing and the dialogue in this episode. It was such a well done episode. The symbolism, oh my god. This episode, I think, deserves to be going down in history as one of the most best cinematic episodes ever in television history, not just in The Walking Dead. I don't think it's my favorite. I don't think it's deserving of the best, but it's definitely deserving of the top 3. Now, it's a crime. It's a crime against humanity. This episode has a 9.1 on IMDb. No, it should have a 9.8 at least. Maybe even 9.9, but 9.8 at least. I think it only has 9.1 because people were shocked and kind of grossed out by some of the gore, which, if you're grossed out by gore, you shouldn't be watching this show in the first place. Let's be real here. But I love this episode. Oh my god, it's so good. It's so good. I just want to watch it a million times over again. But it's not my favorite episode. It's not my favorite, even though everything about it, soundtrack, don't forget about that. They have some amazing pieces of music in this episode. And honestly, I think Andrew Lincoln still deserves an Emmy for this episode. He still does, to this day, deserves an Emmy for this particular episode. But yeah, it comes in number 3. Coming in number 2 spot, I've got No Way Out, Season 6, Episode 9, which has a 9.6 on IMDb, which is definitely better, more, realistic of a choice, because obviously a lot of people are going to give bad reviews regardless, but I think it deserves like a 9.9 straight up. No Way Out was really one of the most anticipated episodes of the series and ended up definitely paying off in a major way. I loved the soundtrack. I love the action. It was well done. I mean, of course, we had the beginning of the episode, which was Daryl blowing up the Saviors in the road. That was awesome. Don't forget about that. Then we had the group walking through the herd with that awesome soundtrack, and then of course Sam losing it, seeing a little kid walker, thinking about Carol's words, and getting eaten alive, and then Jesse getting eaten alive, and then Ron shooting Carl in the eye, and then all that crazy shit. I mean, that scene was one of the most shocking scenes to me, even though I knew it was coming. Like, I knew that scene was coming. It happened in the comics. I was like, it's gonna happen in the show. And I was watching that scene, and I was still, my jaw was to the floor, and I was staring at the screen in a shock, even though I knew it was coming, which is insane to me. And then seeing Carl get his eye shot out, oh my god. Falls to the ground. I knew he wasn't gonna die, but it was still like, holy shit. And seeing just Rick lose it and later in the episode was awesome. Seeing him grab his hatchet, going out, slicing and dicing. The directing was so good in this episode. So good. And then we had, of course, the wonderful scenes later on with the group coming together. I loved how well the theme and the messages episode was. I mean, these people did not like each other at this point. They were mad at Rick for different things. Rick was mad at them for different things. They were apart. A lot of them were weenies. A lot of them didn't want to fight, but they came out together to fight against something, and Rick realized they have to stay in this community. This was one of the most important episodes in the entire series for the All Out War arc. It needed to happen because we needed something that makes Rick want to call this place home. And that's what No Way Out was. It made Rick want to call this place home, so he has reason to protect it in the all-out war. Because otherwise, if this didn't happen, they'd probably just leave Alexandria. They'd probably just be like, all right, screw that. People are coming, trying to kill us and trying to take our shit. We're just going to go and leave. But No Way Out made Rick realize that this place is something precious that they have to take care of and they have to protect. The people here are fighters. They can fight. They can do it. Okay? That was impactful. I loved this episode for that reason alone. Seeing everyone just being badasses was awesome as well. Of course, you had Denise with the wolf guy, and then you had Morgan and Carol. Morgan being like, yo, Carol, you don't have to kill. And then Carol's like, yo, yeah, I do. I have to kill this guy. He's going to kill Denise. And then, of course, her ending up actually killing him, but then seeing him helping Denise. So then she was changing her mind a little bit about how she handles killing people later on in the season, which was obviously important for her story arc. So I love that. And then, of course, we have that end montage where they all fight against the walkers together. One of the coolest scenes ever. And then ending with Rick holding Carl's hand, and Carl like grasps his hand, even though he was like, unconscious. He still grabs his hand. That was so emotional. Loved it. No Way Out definitely deserves number 2 spot on this list. Let's get into the number 1 spot. So right now, go in the comments and guess what the number 1 spot is. I want to see your predictions. I'm interested to see what you guys think it is. Just go put it in the description real quick, or the comments. I want to see what you guys think. Don't cheat. Do not cheat. But yes, number 1 is Season 4, Episode 8, which was titled Too Far Gone. I give it the IMDb gives it a 9.7, which I think is actually the highest rated episode. Too Far Gone, to me, is going to be such a hard episode to beat. Now, looking at it as a whole, it's not the most entertaining episode. I think No Way Out, The Day Will Come When You Won't Be, even sometimes some of the other episodes, they're more entertaining. But this episode, in terms of the writing, in terms of the dialogue, in terms of the action, in the way everything was shot, in the emotion, I don't think it can be beat, man. I don't know how it's going to be beat. I hope the Whisper War can have an episode that'll beat it, but, like, will it? I don't know. The episode starts off pretty slow, We see how the governor kidnapped Herschel and Michonne, and they're kind of on edge a little bit because they're going to attack this community. At least the governor has those intentions. He brings a goddamn tank, but their main goal was just to tell them to leave so they can take the prison over because they needed a home. They show up, and that's when things start getting real, and then you see Rick talking to the governor, and the dialogue between the two was just so good. I mean, that was some of the best dialogue between any two characters ever. I loved it. Every second of their dialogue was so great. And then we get to see Rick pleading, almost, when the governor holds the katana up to Herschel's neck, and Rick's sitting there with one of the best speeches of all time. Such a good speech. He basically was saying exactly what Herschel was trying to teach him. Herschel was like this mentor character for a long time, and he was kind of teaching Rick all these things, like the fact that you can come back from things. That's one of the biggest messages and themes in the entire Walking Dead franchise, is being able to have second chances, being able to come back from being a psychopath, or being able to come back from some sort of hardship, and seeing him relaying that information back to the governor, telling him that we can come back from this. You are not too far gone. You can come back, you can be a part of our community, and we can live and thrive like we ever did before. But the governor said that you're lying. I know what's going to happen if I give up. You're going to end up killing me. Screw you. You know it can't work. So he slices Herschel's neck until he dies. And then that ensues one of the coolest shootouts and one of the most action-packed scenes in The Walking Dead history. This 20-minute battle between the two communities with tanks, people shooting each other with machine guns, walkers coming into the fight at one point. Rick and the governor having a fist fight was awesome too. And then, of course, Michonne coming from behind the governor later on and slicing this katana through his back. Loved that shit. And yeah, I really, 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 really like this episode a lot. And I'm sure a lot of you guys do too. I mean, it's definitely one of the most loved episodes in the franchise. And then, of course, how it ends with them seeing Judith's cradle bloodied up. They assume maybe she was killed, eaten alive, maybe she was taken, maybe something happened, but all they know is that she's not there. So they tear up, they cry, they're sad, and they leave defeated with nothing with them, and they're all split up. They see the prison in the background, and Rick says one of the best lines in the series, "Don't look back, just keep walking." He's saying, don't look back. Something bad happened there. We don't want to remember it. We want to move on and get past it. But we all know the second half of season 4, they don't have an easy time getting past it. They have to deal with a lot of problems. And yeah, so the writing behind this episode, the dialogue, the emotion, the soundtrack is all so good that it has to get number 1. It has to. And I don't think any episode's going to beat it for a long time. This is the pinnacle of The Walking Dead, in my opinion, this episode. It's not my favorite season, though. In terms of, like, this favorite season, I'd say, like, season 6, 9, 8, some of my favorites. But this episode was just really, really good. So it comes in number 1 spots. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. I want to end the video with showing you guys the amount of episodes from each season that were included on this list, which can kind of put some perspective as to, you know, what seasons I might like the most, sort of a thing. So don't think just because a season has the most episodes, it doesn't mean it's my favorite season, or a season has the least amount of episodes. That just means these seasons have the best of the best episodes within them. But that doesn't mean as a whole I like that season more, obviously. Season 1 had 0 episodes that I thought were top 25 worthy. Season 2 had 2 episodes. Season 3 had 2 episodes. Season 4 had 3 episodes. Season 5 had 3 episodes. Season 6 had 3 episodes. Season 7 had 2 episodes. Season 8 had 6 episodes. Yes, Season 8 is not my favorite season, but I think it has the most top 25 worthy episodes. I think it has a lot of those really good ones. And then Season 9 has 4 top 25 episodes. So that means season 8 and 9 has the most amount of top quality episodes, in my opinion. That's maybe because it's the honeymoon period. We've recently seen them. I don't know. But yeah, that's kind of how it is. I think those seasons just have a lot of those really impactful episodes. I mean, come on, they're really big seasons with really big moments in them. So obviously there's going to be some better episodes because of that. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the list. Let me know yours in the comment section below. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.